Welcome into Rob Wright's Gen X Pop Culture. And today we're talking about one of my favorite movies from the late 70s, Superman, starring Christopher Reeve. I'm going to tell you why I love this movie, and then I'm going to tell you about my favorite scenes. Um, this movie is just one of those feel-good movies. It's a superhero movie, and I know that, a lot of people say that Superman is either their favorite character or not their favorite character. Um, because of a lot of things that he represents, but also people say that he's not their favorite character because he's too perfect. And I understand that, but I love everything that Superman represents: truth, justice, and the American way. I love this movie. I love how he's presented in it, and we're really going to talk more about it. First of all, I need to tell you a little story real quick. So this was about, oh my gosh, it's been years ago. I'm not going to reveal too much about my age, but I was in a church volleyball league, and the team that I captained, we decided to go with Superman as our jerseys. So this is kind of my volleyball jersey from back in the day. It's long sleeve. It was an indoor volleyball league at the church. I'm not wearing this right now because it's 105 degrees in Texas and it's too hot. But we once came out to start the season and to start a game to the Superman music, and a bunch of goofy guys like me and a couple others. It was a co-ed league, so we had the girls that wore Superman shirts too, but the guys, we all decided to do the shirt and tie above it, and then step out of the shirt and tie in warm-ups with our Superman jerseys. And they had the CD going with the Superman soundtrack and the score, and it was a lot of funny memory that I have to share because it leads into the movie, and it leads into one of the biggest parts of the movie for me is the score. The score to this movie is amazing, done by the great John Williams. The Superman theme is just amazing, and let me bring up my screenshots here for the movie here. So this is the movie posters. This one's kind of the most iconic one that I always saw. I think this one's really cool because one of the catch lines or the taglines of the movie is "You'll believe a man can fly," and then I thought this was another good one that has all the other actors in the movie. But the score was amazing. John Williams composed it. It's just whenever you hear it, you think of Superman, and I love the big bold brass beginning of it, and you hear all the different elements of the orchestra enter into a symphonic masterpiece. There are other great songs on there, like the "Can You Read My Mind" is a very classic. And, John Williams has done so many wonderful, incredible pieces of music, and this is definitely a top 10 for him. All right, so as a little kid, I was exposed to this movie. I didn't see it in the movie theaters, but I saw it on TV. So on TV, they had a 6-hour run before Superman 2 came out, and they split it into 2 nights. So an hour and a half one night and an hour and a half the second night. And it drew me to him. I love Superman. I had a few of the toys. I definitely had the underoos that you'll see here. I had friends who had the Superpowers Justice League back in the 80s. Of course, now there's like the Hot Toys. And of course, who can forget about Superman Pez and the Christopher Reeve Pez? But yeah, it was my first exposure to Superman seen on TV. And I remember seeing Superman 2 in the movie theaters. So I have a vivid memory of Superman 2 in the theaters for this. And Superman 2 was shot really soon after Superman 1. And it came out a couple of years after Superman 1. So the other reason that I love this movie is I just love the story. It's a great origin story. It's very tight in its pacing and filming, at least the theatrical version. The 3-hour version, which is on special disc that you can get, is just a little bit more choppy, but it was very tight, and I really liked that about it. I love the origin parts that I'm going to get into a little bit more, but I also love kind of the love story and kind of the things that we see Superman do in this movie that really demonstrate who he is and what kind of character he is. I would say also the other aspect of this movie that makes it great is just how well Christopher Reeve plays Clark Kent. Yes, Clark Kent. Clark Kent is kind of the opposite of Superman, and it's like he's playing two different people, and that's how he kind of approached it. And it makes the movie even better because he does a phenomenal job as Clark Kent. And I'll talk about some of the scenes with Clark Kent that are wonderful and great. Let's talk about some of the actors because that's the other reason why I love this movie so much. Christopher Reeve, classically trained actor, wonderful in this role. I will always think of Superman as Christopher Reeve. He will be forever my Superman, no matter what. I know Henry Cavill did a great job, and I love that he was Superman. I wish he still was Superman, but Christopher Reeve is always going to be my Superman. He was my first Superman. Margaret Kidder did a great job as Lois Lane. She really nailed the part with her grit and her stubborn toughness. I thought she did a great job in this. But Gene Hackman, for me, is just an amazing Lex Luthor. I thought he did a phenomenal job. And it's interesting to go on and see him in other great roles. For instance, Norman Dale in Hoosiers compared to Lex Luthor. I mean, it's just night and day, but it's interesting. He's such a wonderful actor who captured Lex Luthor and the essence of Lex Luthor in this role. A couple of the other side characters that I love was Ned Beatty as Otis. He did a great job as the bumbling buffoon to Lex Luthor. And then, of course, the beautiful Valerie Perrine as Miss Tessmacher. She was gorgeous, and she did a fantastic job in that role. Those are the main reasons why I love this movie. Let's talk about some of my favorite scenes. There's so many great scenes in this movie. It's hard to narrow it down to a few, but I just love the start of the movie. It opens up with Krypton, and just to see Superman's home world, you see the shot of the red sun and then beyond the red sun, and you get a feel for this planet and where they are. And it's so cool. When you finally start to see the people, you're seeing the beginning of a trial, and you're like, oh my gosh, who are these people in these hula hoops? And this is Jor-El, Superman's father, played by the great Marlon Brando, who was excellent in this. And you start to wonder, oh my gosh, who is Kal-El and what's going on here? You're hooked immediately into, hey, this is a trial. What's going on? And they basically talk about the trial and sentence the three villains to the Phantom Zone, and they come back in Superman 2. When I first saw this, I was like, hey, wait a minute. What happened to those people flying through space in that square thing? Where are they? And lo and behold, found out that, hey, you're going to see Superman 2 pretty soon, and they're in Superman 2. So pretty cool. Anyway, it was just great to see that. And then you have here where you see them making the ship for their baby Kal-El to send to Earth. And I love this scene. It's kind of touching because, even though Kal-El and his wife can't escape, they can send their son. And, he tells her and the baby that he's not going to be alone. He'll have us with him, our essence in these crystals. And so he sends him off to Earth, and just an amazing scene. And you see his ship flying away. Really, really great and really cool stuff. There's another shot of the ship and the baby and everything. And it brings me to my next favorite scene. I do absolutely love this scene where he crash lands on Earth, and Jonathan and Martha Kent are driving in their truck, presumably coming back from church, because it looks like they were in church type clothes. And they see the spaceship, and they find the boy, and the tire had been blown out, and they wrap him up in a blanket, and Jonathan's trying to fix the tire, and all of a sudden the jack goes out, and then there's little Clark lifting up the truck, which is this is just a great scene. It just kind of gives you that warm feeling, like, oh my goodness, which I just absolutely love. And then I love the rest of his adolescence, even though it's very brief. It's really cool. He's a trainer on the football team because if he used his powers, he could really be the best athlete, but he's not meant to do that. And we'll get into that in a minute. But at the very end of practice, everybody, leaves, and he's supposed to clean up, and it shows him kicking a football, and he's just putting it way, way far. And then he takes off running. And this scene right here, I think, is really cool, where he runs past the locomotive, and the girl in the locomotive who sees him is Lois Lane as a kid. So that's a really cool moment. The other cool moment about that is that you've got, playing Lois's mother and father in the train, two of the original actors from the Superman TV series from way back when. And they're both in it too, which is a cool and fitting tribute to Superman. Anyway, the next scene that I just adore out of this is just the speech from his father. And he tells his dad, hey, I can get a touchdown every time, and his father puts his arm around him and really gives him some wonderful advice. He says, I know you're here. It's not to score touchdowns, but you are here for a reason. You're here for a purpose. And any kind of affirmation that a father can give a son is just fantastic. And that's one of the things that's great about this movie, is that he gets affirmed by both his earthly father and later on by Jor-El. And we'll talk about that scene coming up. It's wonderful. I love that. It gives a good father-son vibe. It's something that is very meaningful to me as a man and as a boy when I watch this, just to see that affirmation. Very important in life and very important in this. And I think it's great because it shows where he kind of really gets his morals from his parents, his earthly parents, who are just farmers and regular people. So it's fantastic. It's great. The next scene that I absolutely love, Lois, and she's going to go take the chopper to go meet the president, and there's an accident, and the chopper kind of hangs over, and she's trying to get out, and she falls out and is hanging by the seat belt here. And Clark doesn't even notice. He walks out, he sees people looking everything up, and then he looks and he sees her, and then all of a sudden he's finding a telephone booth. He goes to a telephone booth, but it's one of those open ones. So he can't change there. So he goes to a opening of like a hotel that's a spinning entrance, and he spins real fast, becomes Superman. And when he comes out, there's a very funny scene in this movie where somebody, comments, "Whoa, that's a fly suit." And he's like, "Excuse me." And then he flies off, and we see him go, and he saves her. And one of my favorite lines in the whole movie, "You got me? Who's got you?" Which I just love that line. I love that scene. And he flies up and he catches the helicopter as it's falling, and he puts the helicopter back on the landing pad, gets the guys to get medical attention for the pilot, and makes sure Lois is okay. And then the other great thing about this movie is the scenes that kind of follow, that shows Superman doing the great things that he does. So here's the helicopter catch again. And the next scene, he stops a jewelry thief and turns him into the police. Then he stops a big robbery on a boat. That's a really cool scene. And then he comes back and he saves a kitty from a tree, which is just so heartwarming. So he's able to do these great feats, but yet he'll still rescue a kitty from a tree for a little girl to help her out, which just, it shows you just what a hero is and what Superman represents. And that's kind of heartwarming. That's just, there's a lot of good in that. And that always makes me feel good when you see somebody doing right or helping people and doing something right. And that's what I love about this film. All right. So you have this scene. Actually, this is a cut scene that was in there where he goes back to the Fortress of Solitude after doing all these, telling his Kryptonian father, Jor-El, how wonderful it felt to do these things. And Jor-El gives him some sound advice that, be careful, you can't do this, 24 hours a day. So it's a really good scene. Really, I wish they hadn't cut it out of the theatrical cut, but if you go and get the extended cut, it's got this. All right, the next scene that I absolutely love in this movie is meeting Lex. And this is another part of the cut scene. In the theatrical version of the movie, he just goes down underground, and then you hear the ending of it, and he comes in and meets Lex Luthor and bashes his door down. Well, the cut part was, you had machine guns, you had fire, you had ice, you had all these things that Lex Luthor sets up to get to his underground condo to try and slow Superman down, or maybe trap him, or maybe just try and find a weakness other than kryptonite. So it's really cool. It's really interesting. Like I said, the extended version is the way to go with this movie because it shows all these great cut scenes. So he gets there, knocks down the door, meets Lex Luthor. The other thing that I love about this is Lex Luthor says, "My attorney will be in touch with you for repairs of the door," which I just think is hilarious. And Superman just gives him this look. And then he basically tells Superman all his plans. And basically he's going to try and, if you haven't seen the movie, spoiler alert, he's going to have 2 rockets rerouted so that it blows up half of California, and then it'll fall into the sea on the San Andreas Fault. And so he bought up all this land in the desert, and it's going to be the new beachfront property. And so he's got all the different towns, Marina del Lex, Lutherville, and Otis puts Otisburg right there. And I just think it's a great scene between Lex and Otis. Otisburg, it's a little bitty place, a little bitty, small place. So it's funny how Lex gives the plans, and he's truly a disease maniac. And Superman's had enough. He gets ready to get rid of him, but Lex gets the best of him, and you have the kryptonite here, and he puts the kryptonite chain around him and tosses him in the pool so that Superman won't be around to stop his plan of the missiles hitting the San Andreas Fault. Anyway, the other part of the scene that's really, really great is he kind of convinces Miss Teschmacher because one of the missiles was plugged in wrong, and it's going to go to Hackensack, New Jersey, where her mom lives. So she saves him, and she gets a kiss, and he promises to go save her mom first. Fun, heartwarming scene, and you get to see more Miss Teschmacher, which I love too. So those are some of my favorite scenes, but my absolute favorite scene in the movie is this. When he first finds the crystal and goes to the Fortress of Solitude, he finds that it called to him, and he's out in the field, and his mom is getting breakfast ready, and she's calling for him, and then she sees him out in the field with the dog. And ironically, it's a Cheerios placement, by the way, which is interesting. Superman eats Cheerios, which is not a sponsor of this video, but interesting enough. And so his mom goes out to see him, and he says, "I've got to go." And she goes, "I know." And it's a heartwarming goodbye. And then he goes north. And then the crystal basically tells him to throw it. And he throws the crystal, and it forms this amazing Fortress of Solitude. So getting to see the Fortress of Solitude is just incredible. Just the elegance of it and what they did with it. Now, I saw in the filming of it, a lot of this is not really ice, it's salt. And just the amount of detail that they had to do using salt for this was amazing. The other aspect of it is they really had to be careful of the lenses and the rest of the camera, because if salt got in the camera, there goes your expensive camera. So they had to do a lot of careful shooting using the salt to replace kind of the snow and ice to give the proper effect. Anyway, he takes these crystals and he learns of his father. He learns his name is Kal-El, and Jor-El meets him. Here's the face of Jor-El. And basically, he's 18 when he gets there, and they spend 12 years together, and he's teaching him everything he needs to know about Earth, human beings, Krypton, the universe as they know it. So he's instilled with all this great knowledge of his people and of the universe, which is interesting because, it's one way to help Superman grow and understand the hero that he's going to become. And it has my favorite line in the entire movie on this. He says, with human beings, their capacity for good is the reason why I sent them you, my son, which is just, it gets me right here because it shows that humanity does have some good, that there is some good to us, that we can do some good. And he says that we only lack the light to show the way. And it's for this reason I sent them you. And so Superman is that light. He is that figure that brings hope, that helps people. And that's why I love this movie. That's why this whole movie just comes together and makes me feel good, makes me hopeful, makes me look at a superhero and go, yes, that's a superhero that I want to be. Anyway, that's Superman, the movie from 1978. What do you like about this movie? Was it one of your favorites? Did you see it growing up? Let's discuss below. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And as usual, we'll see you on the next one.